Good morning, students. This is Kasturi from Wales. Okay, today we are going to see the subject software engineering. Let us get into the subject. Yeah, we are going to see block 2, that is software cost estimation, and block 2 we are going to see about requirements engineering process. Okay, what is requirement engineering process? It explains about the steps involved in the gathering the requirements and the importance of requirement validation, how it is performed. Yes, requirements engineering process is what we will be gathering the requirements from the client side. And also, it's not only enough to gather the information, but also to validate whether the requirements are a valid requirements and how you are going to perform. Therefore, requirement engineering process is going to be conducted for gathering the valid requirements and how we are going to perform. Okay. Requirement engineering. The process to gather the software requirements from clients, analyze and document them is known as requirement engineering. Yes. We usually get the software requirements from the client who is going to use that software. Okay, the goal of the requirement engineering is to develop and maintain sophisticated and descriptive system requirement specification document. Therefore, the goal of the requirement engineering is to create a descriptive, that is what SRS, software requirement specification. Therefore, that is the goal of the requirement engineering, and to validate the SRS and to perform how we are going to perform. All the things will be recorded. Whether the requirements gathered from the client or validated or valid requirements, and then how it is going to be performed. All the things will be recorded in the SRS. Okay. What is requirement engineering process then? It is a three-step process which includes feasibility study, requirement gathering, and then software requirement specification. Yeah, we can see one by one. What is feasible study? Yes, whether we are going to develop a software, we'll be checking the feasibility, technical feasibility, economical feasibility, and operational feasibility, whether the software is feasible enough in the three perceptions: economical, technical, and operational. When the client approaches the organization for getting the desired product developed, it comes with a rough idea about what are the functions the software must perform and which are all the features are expected from the software. Referencing to this information, the analyst, that is software analyst, does a detailed study about whether the desired system and its functionality are feasible to develop. The client may give n number of requirements. It is the duty of the analyst to analyze and tell whether the functionality is feasible or not, whether they can develop that functionality or not. Okay. Then this feasibility study is focused towards the goal of the organization. What is the main objective of the organization? Okay. This study analyzes whether the software product can be practically materialized in terms of implementation, contribution of project to the organization, cost constraint, and as per values and objectives. Yeah, whatever in the requirement specification, it should be done in terms of action, that is in terms of implementation and contribution of project to the organization and cost constraint also. Therefore, the analyst to analyze all the feasibility of the particular product in terms of implementation and project to the organization, cost constraints, and objectives of the organization is satisfied. Also, it explores technical aspects of the project and products such as usability, maintainability, productivity, and integration ability. Therefore, the technical feasibility will be checked by the usability, ability to use, ability to maintain, how many users are going to be use that particular product, levels of users, maintaining the product or the software, after the deployment, and then what is the productivity, how they are going to produce the software within the time limit, within the cost budget, and how many technical structures, what are the technical structures they need, and integration ability to integrate all the things. The output of this phase should be a feasibility study report that should contain adequate comments and recommendation for management about whether or not the project should be undertaken or not. Anyway, the client will have a meeting with the technical team of the software development team after this feasibility study only, whether the project is economically feasible, technically feasible, and operationally feasible. That particular project or the product will be undertaken by the team members after this study. Okay. After the study only, the particular software company will decide whether the particular project can be undertaken or not. Okay. Then comes the second step, requirement gathering. First one is what? Feasibility study. After that, requirement gathering. Yes, okay. The feasibility report is positive, then the step will be proceeded. Otherwise, it will be stopped with the first step itself. With the study of the project is not feasible, then they will not take it to the second step. They will not move to the requirement gathering itself. They will be withdrawing the project. Okay. If the feasibility report is positive towards undertaking the project, the next phase is what? Gathering requirements from the user. Okay. The analyst, software analyst, and the engineers, software developers communicate with the client and the end users. Yes, client who will be using the product or a software as the end user. And client is approaching the software developer team. He is going to buy that product. To know their ideas, therefore the technical team, the analysts and engineers communicate and have a meeting with clients and end users to gather the requirements and to know their ideas on what the software should provide and which features they want the software to include. Therefore, the technical team that comprises of analysts, software developers communicate with the clients and the end user. The end user is the user who is going to use the project. Okay. Therefore, from by both of them, the technical team will be sitting and they will have an communication to collect the requirements for the particular software to be built. Okay. First step is feasibility study. If it is okay, then they proceed. If it is a positive approach, the feasibility report is a positive towards the project, undertaking the project, then they will go for the requirement gathering. Requirement gathering, there will be a technical team with the, communicating with the clients and the end users. After that, they will be getting an idea. After a meeting, immediately they cannot create SRS, but they'll be getting an idea what the client needed, what are the features they want to include in the software. Then comes the software requirement specification. We usually call it as SRS. The document created by system analyst after the requirements are collected from various stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders for this project? Is what? Client, end user, software developers, having a communication with all of them. The SRS will be created by the system analyst or software analyst after the requirements are collected from the stakeholders who are involved. Stakeholders are the persons who are involved in the project development. Okay. SRS defines how the intended software will interact with the hardware, external interfaces, speed of the operation, what is the time it's taking to operate or access, response time of the system, execution time, portability of the software across various platforms, how the system is portable to the cross platforms, maintainability, speed of recovery after crashing, security, and most important, quality, and the limitations, etc. Everything will be defined in the SRS, software requirement specification. Then the requirements received from client are written in natural language. Okay, whatever communication language, English like language, it will be written whenever this is from the client side. And it is the responsibility of the system analyst to document the requirements, the technical language. After getting the requirements from the client side, the common communication language like English, those requirements are changed, converted to the technical language by the analyst so that they can be comprehended and useful by the software development team. Technical languages. Okay. Okay. What are the features of SRS? Yes, user requirements are expressed in natural language, definitely. Technical requirements are expressed in structured language that is used inside the organization. They will be having structured language like pseudocode, some diagrams, like which module, what are the functions inside the modules, overall structure, how do they divide into components like that. And then design description should be written in pseudocode. It's not a false code. Format of forms and GUI screen print. What are the forms you are going to use? And format of that GUI, graphical user interface screen prints. How it going to look? What are the looks of the user interfaces? Conditional mathematic notations of DFDs, data flow diagrams, and what are the levels? DFD level 0, level 1, level 2. It goes on like that. These are things that will be recorded in the SRS, and these are the features of SRS, software requirement specification. Okay, after collecting it, software requirement specification, and what to do, the next step is validating the software requirements. All the requirements cannot be implemented in practically. Some valid requirements will be illegal. Some requirements cannot be implemented practically. Some may be interpreted wrongly. Therefore, whatever requirements collected from the client, whatever requirements collected from the client side, that will be recorded in the SRS. Somewhat feasible requirements will be recorded, although after that, collected from the SRS should be validated. Anyway, feasibility report will give the positive note towards project development, but from the requirements in the SRS should be validated. Yes, okay. That's a 7.3 we are going to see. After requirement specifications are developed, the requirements mentioned in this document are validated. Whatever in the document should be validated. Sometimes the user might ask for illegal, it cannot be done. The feature that requirement cannot be done, and then impractical solution, which that requirement cannot be implemented practically, or experts may interpret the requirements incorrectly. Sometimes the misunderstanding between the client and the technical team arises, so that the requirements may be interpreted incorrectly. It also happens. Therefore, the requirement validation, software requirement validation is a needed one after the collecting the SRs. Okay. This research, what happens if it was not validated properly, software requirements are not validated properly, this results in a huge increase in cost, waste of time. And once again, coming back with the project, once again, rework is needed for that. Therefore, to avoid this, we are going to do the software requirement validation. Okay, first thing is what? Feasibility study. At this stage itself, that software team will decide whether the software can be undertaken or not. After that, it is okay. Then it comes to software requirement, collect requirements gathering. There we will be having what? Requirements gathering. After that, we will be going for software requirement specification. So in requirement gathering, both the team members will be the technical team and the client and end user will be communicating. After that, SRS will be collected from the client side, with the not only from the client side, also all the it will be recorded with a group of stakeholders. Okay. After that, those requirements in the software requirement specification document will be validated. Okay. To avoid the lack of time, waste of time, and huge increase in cost, etc. Okay. Requirements can be checked against following conditions. Okay, how can we validate? Most okay. How can we validate the requirements? By these things? If they can be practically implemented, yes, should be checked with the developers team. Okay. They are valid and as per functionality and domain of software, it is valid or not as per the functionality and domain of the software. If there are any ambiguities, not complex, not clear, the requirements are not clear, we'll be checking there. Okay. If they are complete, the requirement is complete or incomplete. Okay. If they can be demonstrated, yes, the requirement can be demonstrated. It was demonstrated properly. These things are checked for requirements. Okay. After this, requirements elicitation process. It's a process of dragging the requirements. Okay. Drawing the proper requirements. Okay. What are the 4 steps here? Requirement gathering. Yes, it was done at the starting stage after the feasibility report. Okay. Whenever the project is undertaken, it will be started. And then after collecting the requirements, we will be organizing it. Requirements are organized in a particular manner. And then all the requirements will not be taken into consideration. Certain requirements cannot be fulfilled due to many reasons. Therefore, there will be a negotiation and discussion will be there. After that, they will draw the SRS, software requirement specification. Okay. Requirements gathering, developers discuss with the clients and end users and know their expectation from the software because they are going to use the software and they need the software actually so that they come and approach the software developer team. Okay. Organizing requirements. Developers prioritize and arrange the requirements in order of importance, urgency, and convenience. Because the software, the clients and the end user may not know the order of the importance. They will tell the requirements as a in general. Only the organizing developing team can know the prioritizing and arrange the requirements in order of importance, which is needed, urgency, and which is needed in convenience, the time of desirable time. Okay. Negotiation and discussion. If requirements are ambiguous or there are some conflicts and requirements of various stakeholders, if they are, it is a negotiate and discuss with stakeholders. There are some conflicts in requirements. Some requirements cannot be practically implemented. Likewise, they will be discussed once again with the stakeholders. Stakeholders are the interest holders who are involved in the project, the client, the end users, the technical team, and analyst. Okay. Requirements may then be prioritized and reasonably compromised. Yeah, those things cannot be done. Those things can be done. Those things can be done with extra effort. So the possible thing we can be done. Likewise, they will be having a discussion and reasonably compromise with the requirements. The requirements come from various stakeholders. To remove the ambiguity and conflicts, they are discussed for clarity and corrections. Therefore, they are prioritizing the requirements. Therefore, they may add some requirements or they say remove some requirements at that negotiation and discussion. Unrealistic requirements are compromised reasonably. Yes, some requirements cannot be done in reality. They are compromised. Okay. Next comes the documentation. Everything is over. The comments have been validated. Then comes the documentation. What are things to be documented? All formal and informal, functional and non-functional requirements are documented and made available for next phase processing. Informal and formal, whatever they're given in the documentation and whatever they given, the client and the end user given in the orally, whatever discussed in oral format, everything, functional and non-functional requirements, everything are documented and made available for the next phase processing. Okay. And the requirement elicitation techniques. What are the techniques we can gather the requirements from the client or the end user? There are many techniques available. Okay. To find out the requirements for internal software system by communicating with clients, end users, system users, and others who have a stake in the software system, who have interest, who are involved in the software system development. Okay, who are involved, so developers are also involved. For client, end user, system users, and these developers will also be involved in the requirement elicitation techniques. Mainly, the analyst will be responsible for gathering the information. System analyst. Okay, the first technique is interviews. Interviews are strong medium to collect requirements. Organization may conduct several types of interviews so that they can collect the requirements from the clients and the end users. Structured interviews are closed interview, that is, they will decide what to talk and then they will conduct the interview. Where every single information to gather is decided in advance, they follow pattern and matter of discussion firmly because closed interviews are already known in advance what the topic they are going to discuss. That is closed interviews. Non-structured interviews or they won't decide in advance, but they will have a general talk. There is an open interview called as open interview. When information to gather is not decided in advance, more flexible and less biased because it was a general. They are not decided about any topic and they are not going to set any goal at that time. Everything is decided in advance. Therefore, they can talk, free to talk. Oral interviews, return interviews, one-to-one interviews which are held between two persons across the table. Group interviews also there which are held between groups of participants. They help to uncover any missing requirements and numerous people are involved. As numerous people are involved, yes. These are the types of interviews available to gather the requirements properly. Open interviews without any decided topic they will discuss. But closed interview means what? They will decide the topic in advance and they will discuss about that in a particular day. Oral interviews, they will take an interview orally. Return interviews, they will give some information in return. One-to-one interview, and then group interviews also there. Whether there are any missing requirements or have been left out can be discussed at that time. Right. Surveys, interviews, surveys, questionnaires, task analysis, domain analysis. Okay, brainstorming, prototyping. These are the available techniques to gather the requirements. What are the things? Prototyping, brainstorming. Okay, observation. Last one is observation, brainstorming, prototyping, surveys, questionnaires, task analysis, domain analysis, interviews. Therefore, what are the techniques allowed for illustration, recommend illustrations are interviews? We have seen that. Yes, we're going to see about surveys. Yes, organization may conduct survey among various stakeholders by querying about their expectation and requirements from the upcoming system. They will conduct a survey. Based upon that number of how many members are giving the support for that. Based upon that, they will elicitate the requirements. All the stakeholders will be there in the service. And question, a set of predefined questions will be there. Then set of options will be there. They can select the respective options. All the stakeholders will be given a chance to select the answers and give the answers for the questionnaires. A shortcoming of this technique is if an option for some issues not mentioned in the questionnaire, the issue might be left unattended. That's a disadvantage of this. Some option may be left in the questionnaire. At that time, the issue might be left unattended. Okay, what is task analysis? Team of engineers and developers may analyze the operation for which the new system is required. The client already has some software to perform certain operation. It is studied and requirements of proposed system are recollected. Task analysis, the team of engineers and developers should analyze the existing system so that they can study and find the requirements of the proposed system. Based upon the existing system, the team of engineers and developers find the requirements of the proposed system. Domain analysis. Next comes the domain analysis. Every software falls into some domain category. The expert people in the domain can be great help to analyze general and specific requirements. Suppose a software project is done upon a medical field. Therefore, the domain knowledge, domain expert is needed to know about the domain knowledge of the software. Some it is going to be an economic, it's an technical means no problem. It's going to be some other subject domain. Therefore, the domain expert is needed to gain the knowledge of the particular domain. It's going to be a medical domain. Likewise. Okay. Next comes the observation. Last one, last technique. Team of experts, which is the client's organization or workplace. And then they observe the actual working of the existing installed systems. They observe the workflow at client's end and how execution problems are dealt with. The team itself draws some conclusion which aid to form requirement expected from the software. So this technique, the last technical observation is the expert team members go to the place of the client side itself, and then they analyze what is the existing scenario of the software they have been using, what are the pros and cons in the existing system, and then they observe the workflow of the client end and how the execution problems are dealt, and draw some conclusion from that, and they form a requirement expected from the software. This is also one of the techniques. What are the techniques? For requirement elicitation techniques are interviews. There are different types of interviews which are here. And then surveys. Everything is done with the stakeholders, not only single person, with stakeholders. All the techniques have been implemented with the stakeholders of the project. Surveys, questionnaires, task analysis. Task analysis is from extracting knowledge from the existing system. Okay, domain analysis, and then brainstorming. An informal debate is held among various stakeholders and all the inputs are recorded for the further requirement. Yes, debate, it is needed, it is not needed. It was actually the debate is here, the debate is informal. Some, all the points are not, some important points will be recorded and it will be applied in the requirement elicitation. Prototyping is a blueprint of the software. It's building user interface without adding a detailed functionality for a user, and intended producing the intended software product. It helps giving better idea of the requirement. It's actually a blueprint of the software so that the main functionality can be achieved. Main functionality can be understood by the client side and the user side, so that they can give they can so that by seeing this, the prototype is shown to the client and the feedback is noted. There is no software installed at client's end for developers reference. The client is not aware of its own requirements. The developers create a prototype based on initially mentioned requirements. Whenever the prototype is shown to the client and the feedback is noted, the client feedback serves as an input for requirement gathering. Based upon the prototype, the client will give a feedback. Based upon the feedback, the requirements gathering, it will take into account the feedback also serves as an input to the requirement gathering. Okay. And last one is the observation. For observation, it will be done in the client side, client's workplace, and then to know the existing system scenario. And then prototyping is building a blueprint by which we will get the feedback from the client for requirement elicitation. And brainstorming is a debate between it's an informal debate between the stakeholders. And then domain analysis, uh, communicating and getting the knowledge about the expert knowledge from the domain. And then task analysis is done from the team of engineers and developers side to know the knowledge about the existing system so that they can study the requirements of the proposed system. And then questionnaires, list of questionnaires will be there, set of objective questions and respective options will be there. All the stakeholders will be answering for that. So that by drawing this questionnaire, they can come to a conclusion about the requirements. And survey is also done for the stakeholders. And then the first one is the interviews. One-to-one and group interviews, every interviews are done. Okay. And altogether, in summary, What are the steps involved in requirement engineering process and the importance of requirement validation, how it is performed, how to elucidate the requirements, everything have been discussed in this unit. And these are the possible questions for this unit: steps of software requirements, and how do we elucidate requirements, features of SRS, importance of questionnaire, and effective interview process. There are n number of interview process, and what are the different types of questions also, open-ended question and close-ended question. There are different types of questions also available. Okay, these are things we discussed. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day.